Hello again, YouTube. So continuing on with our trend of set 4 posting, this time I'm going to do Aeuquilibra, probably one of my favorite set cards out of this set, which you wouldn't expect given it's, me.
Wait, let me do the thing. Hang on. YouTube. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
So yeah, Aeuquilibra is the new Dragon Empire destined one, so of course he has a divine skill, and he is based around the overcharge ability. So his ability is Act, you Soul Blast 2, choose 3 of your rear guards, they get 5k, and then if you chose 2 or more rear guards with the overcharge ability, you draw a card, and he gets 10k until end of turn. Then the divine skill is if your opponent's greater, you counterblast 1, choose 2 of your rear guards, they get 5k. And if your opponent has 4 or less cards in the damage zone, you choose one of your opponent's rear guard, deal a damage, and the power increase of the trigger revealed is reduced by 10,000. I don't get why it doesn't just nullify the trigger completely. This is a divine skill. Come on. The grade 2 in the ride line is when it's rode upon by Aeuquilibra, you look at the top 3 guards, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less card from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you reveal a card with the overcharge ability, it gets you can charge 1. And then the grade 1, when it's rode upon by the grade 2, call it and soul charge 1. And this is the first card we will see that has the overcharge ability. So overcharge is just when it gets chosen by Aeuquilibra's effect, you do a thing. So in this case, it just gets power plus 10,000. So for the main deck, this is the not so budget version of the deck. We are of course running 3 Persona rides. After that, we are running 2 copies of Panzerschreck Dragon. Honestly, don't love this card. It's just kind of there to fill in overcharge name for other things. I half this card is, I guess, because there are times where the energy charge is going to conflict with the next card that we talk about, but I do like that it gains 15,000. So the overcharge ability is on attack. If it was chosen by Aeuquilibra, you energy blast 3, it gets 15k until end of turn, and at the end of the battle, retire it to draw a card. So okay. I like the plus 15,000s combined with the 5k from Aeuquilibra. That makes it 33 on its own, which is quite big. The problem is it kind of conflicts with the next card, Drag Ritter Shalhoub. So if it was chosen by, or if you have 3 or more units with the overcharge ability, it gets 5k, and then the actual overcharge effect is if it was chosen by Aeuquilibra, you can energy blast 3 to restand it when your Vanguard attacks. So the problem with it is just that both of these are energy blasts and you don't really energy charge in this deck, so they are going to kind of conflict a little bit. I think this is one of those cases where if you're playing the deck on the budget, you will have to run Panzerschreck Dragon, but so I'm only running 2 in this build because I think it's an okay card. I like the big Numby, but it does conflict.
Big Numby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This card is Aeuquilibra is just big Numby Turbo.
Can we call it big? Can we call it Numby for life? Big Numby.
Yeah. I am running the Dual Nation Ford, so this is on place. You soul charge, and then he gets 5k, and then you can optionally counterblast to either call a grade 2 or greater rear guard from your, or grade 2 or less card from your soul, or retire one of your opponent's grade 2 or greater. So despite being Dragon Empire, Aeuquilibra doesn't have a ton of removal, so Ford is nice for that. And also, being able to toolbox out of your soul is nice because you do a lot of blind soul charging. So if you soul charge something like a Shalhoub, it'll be nice to call it out. But also, in general, because you're soul blasting 2 for Aeuquilibra's effect, you just kind of need to have it. We're running Foulheart, the energy cycler. It does conflict with our other 2 energy blasts a little bit, but this deck also doesn't counter blast very much, so you can choose to use the counter blast for the draw instead.
I was gonna say I'm hearing the phrase conflicts with each other a lot. I feel like that's gonna get you in trouble.
Not really. That's why I'm only running 2 Panzerschreck, and quite frankly, if I really wanted to, I would just cut the 2 Panzerschrecks for a 4th copy of Shenri and probably a 4th copy of the Order. But yeah, we're running cyclers because cyclers are good. I tried playing the deck without them, and it felt bad. It turns out drawing cards early to make up for your discard is quite nice. Who would have guessed? We're running 4 copies of Eadil. So he's a grade 1. On play, if you have 2 or more units with the overcharge ability. So funny enough, because the grade 1 has overcharge and calls itself out, you can do this turn 2. You draw a card.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you draw a card and then soul charge 1, and then the overcharge is it just gets plus 10k. A lot of the overcharge cards are just like plus 10k.
Of course they are. 10,000 power.
Yeah, so Drag Ritter is that an R? Yes, that's an R. Drag Ritter Frieza. So it just has overcharge when it boosts if it was chosen by Aeuquilibra, but it's plus 10k until end of battle. And then if you didn't countercharge this turn, you can retire it to countercharge 1. Running 3 copies of Shenri, so when it boosts, if your opponent has 1 or less rear guards, or you play it in order, she gets 5k, and at the end of the battle, you put her into soul and draw a card. So Shenri, a little bit expensive. I think the card is like $7-10 right now, but because we do have an in-archetype order, like it is useful for building up soul and digging deeper into your deck. And also early on, especially if you go first, frequently your opponent does not commit enough rear guards to block Shenri from resolving. So it's like, if you find her early, we'll probably resolve, and then later in the game, we can be playing to Equilibrize, which last time we saw this word, we thought it was a fake word, so we had to Google it, and it turns out it's in fact a real word.
What was the word again?
Equilibrize.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember us arguing about this.
That is in fact a real word as it turns out.
Yeah, to equilibrize the scales of the world. So this is the order we're running, both to fuel Shenri, but also because it's a good card. So if you have a Vanguard with Aeuquilibra in its name, you play it by Counterblast 1, choose 2 grade 3 or less cards with different names and the overcharge ability column to rearguard circle. So very useful, both for like building a board. So if you don't find your Foul Hearts, or you can't afford to play them, you just drop your overcharge name, and then scales bring them back. But also late game, especially if you're playing against things that have removal, which is a lot of the decks in the format, then you can also just bring them back for Counterblast 1. And then, of course, after that, we're playing 3 PGs, 1 Sanctitude. I put the Crest Sanctitude in here just because I think I was copying it from the budget version of the deck. And last time I checked, Crest Sanctitude was cheaper, but just use whatever version of Sanctitude you have.
Pretty much.
After that, 8 crit, 3 draw. Don't really need to run fronts because your numbers are big enough. 4 heal, and then the over trigger would just drag Veda because restanding your Vanguard is good. And then for the budget version of Aeuquilibra, we cut out everything that costs even a remote amount of money except for the Sanctitude, which I feel like Sanctitude has gone up. So if you can't afford Sanctitude, just run a 4th regular PG. But we replaced all of the expensive cards with more copies of Panzer Strike Dragon. We are now running Brachio Force, so on hit you can retire it to draw a card and then retire one of your opponent's rear guards. This has been a staple in like Dragon Empire just for like decks that aren't doing anything.
Yeah, it's the I need to fill up some spots in the deck and I don't know what to do.
That is exactly why I'm playing this card.
Makes sense.
And
This card
then,
looks sad.
yeah. And then the last thing I'm running is this double R from set 1. So Dancing Princess of Elegant Flames, Ulfa. So when it boosts a rear guard, if you Persona Road this turn, you can Counterblast 1, choose one of your units until end of turn. I guess at the end of the battle, it attack against crit -2, and then increase or decrease its critical to 2. So basically it becomes a 2 crit unit and then becomes 0. So you can make it work with Shell Hoob. What you would just do is like you would attack with it first, and then you would either like save the boost, or if she's just boosting your other column, you can give Shell Hoob 2 crits on the second attack, so it doesn't matter. Or like Panzer Strike Dragon, because it's 33k on its own, it becomes 40k if you Persona Ride, and then can become. And then the column can go all the way up to like 66 if you have one of the like plus 10k overcharge units behind it. So it's just like, all right, you Counterblast 1, make it 66k in a crit, and it's not like you're really using the Counterblast for anything else. So that is something that's like, honestly, I might consider it in the main deck if it weren't for the fact that like all of the other utility cards are just more useful. And then finally, we're playing 2 copies of Defensing Roar, which I would have also wanted in my actual build of the deck, but I just didn't have space for it. But that one is like, it's a blitz order where you choose one of your guardians that doesn't have the Sentinel ability, and it gets the ability that when it's retired from the guard circle, put it into your hand, and shield plus 10,000. So nice defensive option for you to just kind of round out the deck. So yeah, that is going to be it for the Aeuquilibra deck profile. I think Aeuquilibra is just a really good deck, both for like budget players, but also for new players. It's a very simple deck, as you can see. All of your cards are just like, when they're chosen by Aeuquilibra, they get more powers. Like, the only thing you really have to think about is just managing your energy so that you can use Shalhoub. And like, conserving your resources is like a macro skill that you should just be learning anyways.
Macro skill is a great word.
Yeah, because that's just like, well, that's just one of the basic ass things about Vanguard is resource management. So if that's like the only thing you truly have to be thinking about when it comes to like playing this deck, then I think you can just hand it to someone who has no idea what's going on in Vanguard and they'll figure it out. And the deck is also strong enough that it has some tops, not a ton, but good enough to be at least like rogue meta. It wouldn't be surprising if it ended up in like a top 32, for example. So if you also just want to play a competitive-ish deck without having to think very much, this is also great for you.
This gives me undercover vibes, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, that is going to be it for this deck profile. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.
Newcomers, subscribe.